My father was a traitor. The one who raided my home was my fiancé. When he slipped the iron collar around my neck, his touch was gentler than when he placed a wreath upon my head that year, on the day my father was beheaded in public. I calmly picked lice from my mother's hair. I remarked, "If we had fire, I could stir-fry these lice and pair them with a jug of wine." Unexpectedly, it amused the young general next door, his collarbone hanging like a pipa. Is it funny? All 9 women of the Yun household are locked in the imperial prison, awaiting the emperor's decree. But in the end, they'll either be sold off or taken into the Imperial Music Bureau. Ping Ching. My mother calls me. What time is it? My mother is ill. She fell sick the moment we entered this place 3 days ago. Peering through the narrow air vent at the patch of sky, I whispered, around noon. Noon. My mother clutched my hand tightly, repeating those 2 words helplessly. Noon, the hour when the Yun household would be shattered. My father was about to be beheaded. The men of the Yun household were about to be exiled to the northern deserts. My mother wept bitterly, and my aunts and cousins joined her in tears. My second aunt pleaded with me, Ping Ching. Go beg Song Yen. Just ask him to rescue your sisters. He can do it. Song Yen was my betrothed. 4 years ago, he was the newly crowned 3rd-place scholar in the imperial exams. My father admired his talent and betrothed me to him. His official career flourished, he rose steadily through the ranks, earning the crown prince's deep trust. But now, he too was the executioner who would wipe out the entire Yun clan. I wiped my aunt's tears. He won't help us. My aunt threw herself into my arms, sobbing. My cousins gathered around me, crying and calling me sister. I stared at the sliver of light filtering through the ventilation grate. Too high, too distant, out of reach. Heavy footsteps echoed behind me. I turned, expecting an imperial attendant delivering orders, but instead saw Song Yen. He wore a crimson robe and a double-eared official's cap, standing tall and proud, just a barrier away. Our gazes locked. In that instant, I recalled the first time I'd seen Song Yen. He'd been dressed in a faded gray robe. Approaching me with a bow, Yuanin greets the young mistress. Now, he held high office, while I was a prisoner beneath his contemptuous gaze. My second aunt pleaded with him to save our 4 sisters. Their deaths were of little consequence. But we sisters had been raised in the warmth of a greenhouse. How could we be sent to a place like the music bureau? Song Yen listened in silence, his gaze fixed solely on me. Suddenly, he asked, "Why does the young miss not plead?" The cell fell silent. My aunt's hopeful gaze fixed on my face. I understood my aunt's meaning and knew Song Yan's intent. I knelt before Song Yan. "I beg your excellency to lend your aid and rescue us sisters from here." I bowed my head calmly before him. "If this matter succeeds, Ping Ching vows to serve you faithfully for the rest of my life." From 3 feet away, separated by wooden bars, Song Yan's muffled yet amused laughter drifted over. He crouched slightly, his tone playful. "All 4 sisters as my concubines? The eldest is willing too?" I paused briefly before continuing my bows. I replied, "Your excellency possesses refined grace and extraordinary talent. To become your concubine would be a blessing for my sisters." He laughed again. "I never knew, Miss Song, that you possessed such flexibility." I lowered my head, offering no reply. "Yet," he continued, rising and sweeping his sleeve aside, "what is your blessing is my misfortune." His icy voice settled upon my head. "Young miss, I shall visit you at the music bureau." With that, Song Yen burst into laughter and departed. I straightened, watching his retreating figure with calm eyes. "Ping Ching." My second aunt clutched me, sobbing. "I'm sorry. I was foolish. I shouldn't have sent you to beg that heartless dog." I soothed my aunt, then turned my gaze to the figure chained by the collarbone in the next room. His disheveled hair obscured his face as he sat cross-legged in the corner, unmoving for 3 days. I had thought him dead. But just now, I heard the clank of chains on his collarbone. He was still alive. "Who is that?" My 5-year-old sister nestled close and whispered in my ear. "He is Shao Xing, the youngest general of our dynasty. At 15, he followed his father into battle, unifying the northern desert in just 10 years. Shao Xing's achievements deserve to be recorded in history, revered by future generations. Of course, this is merely my own belief, for Shao Xing has been imprisoned here for treason for half a year now. Do you remember the general we saw at Qinghe Pavilion last year on the 12th day of the 8th lunar month?" My little sister nodded. "That handsome, godlike general? That day, when Shao Xing returned to the capital, the streets emptied as the entire city cheered. I was fortunate enough to see his face, towering over the heavens, commanding respect without a word. I sat by the wooden railing, watching him the entire time. As the light from the air holes dimmed and snores filled the air, I kept watching him. When tired, I shifted my posture, leaning against the railing. When the watch drums sounded 5 times, Shao Xing lifted his head. Through the thickening gloom, he too was watching me. I rose and curtsied to him. He gave a mocking laugh and closed his eyes once more. I pinched my wrist with my fingertips, forcing myself awake, and maintained my posture just as he did. Another day passed, both calm and terrifying. Second sister asked me when they would take us away. I told second sister, since no imperial decree was issued yesterday, we still have 5 days. His Majesty holds court once every 5 days. Today passed. My second sister pointed at the air hole. I nodded. That leaves 4 days. Terrified, she retreated to the corner and wept. I kept watching Shao Xing. Late at night, when the watch drums sounded 5 times again, Shao Xing opened his eyes once more, meeting my gaze fixed upon him. He scoffed again, then closed his eyes without moving. At dawn, the jailer tossed breakfast onto dry straw. I picked it up and fed it to my mother. She refused to eat. She said she'd rather die than see me enter the Imperial Music Bureau. 3 days left. I told her, live 3 more days. If there's no way out, then seek death. She obeyed, chewing the hard, dry steamed bun. This day was the 2nd day of the 2nd lunar month. After night fell, the faint clamor of lantern festivals drifted from the streets. What was I doing last year on this day? I recall accompanying the Empress in the palace, watching the lanterns. The Crown Prince's consort's lotus lantern fell onto my skirt, setting my clothes ablaze. The Empress reprimanded the Crown Prince's consort. The Crown Prince led the Crown Princess to apologize to me. I smiled and said it was nothing. Unnoticed. Dawn broke. Shao Xing opened his eyes, and I still bowed to him through the bars. He stared at me, and I stared back at him. All around, smoke billowed and snow swirled through the sky. It felt as though his gaze carried me away to the vast, desolate, and bitterly cold northern wilderness. General. I gathered my composure, lowering my voice. The people need you. I couldn't discern his expression, only his dark yet still clear eyes, which revealed a hint of amusement. After a long moment, he smiled. That scheming villain Yun Shinji. Could he really have raised a young lady like you? He shifted his posture, leaning against the wooden railing and gazing at me askance. You've watched me for 3 days. Is it the people who need me? Or you? I replied. It makes no difference. I am one of the people. These 3 days of watching him were for this very moment. If we were to escape, the 9 of us, women and children, would have nowhere to hide, let alone whether we could even get out. But what if Shao Xing skilled in martial arts and backed by the northern wastes, were to accompany us? I want to live. But Xiao Xing remained unmoved, merely gesturing at me with the iron chains. I said, I only ask if the general wishes to leave. If you wish, I have a way to free you from these chains. He replied expressionlessly, I do not. Xiao Xing ignored me. The steamed buns before him had long been dragged away by rats. I realized he hadn't eaten or drunk anything for a long time. Why? Dawn was approaching. Tomorrow, His Majesty would hold court. Time was running out for me. The jailer tossed in 9 steamed buns and 2 bowls of water. I rose to call him back. Officer? What is it? General Zhao's breakfast. Won't you deliver it? The jailer frowned and scolded me. You're about to die yourself. Why meddle in others' affairs? With that, he turned to leave. He's trying to kill himself. I whispered. If he dies here, the people of the realm will surely be enraged. The guard laughed, his eyes flashing with scorn. What do the people's anger have to do with me? I spoke slowly, enunciating each word. The people's anger must be appeased by the court. To quell that anger, killing to vent it is the most effective method. Think about it. The guard started to leave but abruptly turned back to look at me. I met his gaze calmly, my eyes unwavering. The guard hurried away and soon returned with rice and hot soup. He knelt before Xiao Xing, urging him to eat. Xiao Xing sat motionless, like an old monk in deep meditation. Through the wooden bars, I spoke up. May I try to persuade General Xiao? Xiao Xing's eyes snapped open, meeting mine for the first time that day. I averted my gaze and pleaded earnestly with the jailer. I only ask that you grant my mother a jug of clean water. The jailer agreed, but remained outside the bars, guarding his position. I knelt before Xiao Xing, bringing a spoonful of rice to his lips. Xiao Xing stared at me, sizing me up. His gaze was icy cold, like a bottomless, pitch-black abyss. For a fleeting moment, I felt a flicker of fear, but only for an instant. Compared to life and death, everything else was insignificant. Does the general find me attractive? I asked him. He raised an eyebrow. His eyes locked on mine, and sneered. Ugly. I brushed my disheveled sideburns. General, look again. Uglier, he declared. My face tightened. At 15, I was the most beautiful girl in the capital. If you find me ugly, General, it's your poor taste. Xiao Xing laughed. So, you're using the beauty tactic? I have nothing else. Only my face. I met his gaze calmly. Just using what I have. Xiao Xing pushed his rice spoon aside. Why didn't you use it on Song Yan that day? I motioned for him to eat first. After a moment of standoff, he took that spoonful. Outside the wooden bars, I heard the jailer exhale a long sigh. Xiao Xing didn't touch the second spoonful. I knelt forward half a step, drawing closer to him. Up close, I saw the new scar on his face, adding a layer of dread. The once handsome and valiant general, fallen to this state. Whose misfortune was this? Song Yan doesn't deserve it, I said. Xiao Xing ate the second spoonful. The jailer was profoundly grateful, but Xiao Xing was not. As I left, he whispered in my ear, still ugly. I curtsied and replied, yes. This man was utterly incorrigible. If he didn't want to leave, everything I'd done would be in vain. I couldn't waste any more time on him. My younger sister whispered to me, sister isn't ugly. It's just that the general has poor taste. My second sister added, the general has been at war for years. He probably can't tell beauty from ugliness anymore. I smiled and nodded. Next door, the chains clinked softly. I glanced over. Xiao Xing had already entered meditation again. What should I do? If I couldn't leave while still in prison? Then I'd have to go to the Imperial Music Bureau first and figure things out later. But what if the 9 of us are separated? I stared at the cell door. From the wooden bars to the entrance, I counted 26 steps when I entered. 4 guards patrol at night. 6 during the day. Tonight's watch is held by that frail, elderly guard. The other 3 will retire for the latter half of the night. The best time to act would be between the hours of 1 and 3 a.m. Escape the cell through the left courtyard gate. Then take the alley to Song Yan's small courtyard. His family has 2 carriages. A gravely ill mother. And a servant woman. At dawn, we'll take him out of the city. 9 against 3, worth a desperate attempt. I pushed aside the straw and sketched the route on the ground when suddenly I heard someone approach outside the wooden bars. I looked up at the figure. The imperial decree is drafted. You 4 sisters shall enter the Imperial Music Bureau. Song Yan stood with hands clasped behind his back, eyeing me. The others will be sold through the official brokerage. I clenched my fists and rose. Thank you, Magistrate Song, for the advance notice. I've made arrangements with the Imperial Music Bureau. They won't let you take other clients. Yes. I offered him a smile. Ping Ching awaits you. Song Yan seemed satisfied and turned to leave. Passing Xiao Xing's cell, he paused. Just as he turned to walk away, his knees buckled, and he collapsed to his knees. Song Yan clutched his knee, glaring angrily at Xiao Xing. What is this? General Xiao? Xiao Xing snorted lightly. Useless. Deep into the night, I waited in silence. Suddenly, the chains clanked. I turned my head, meeting Xiao Xing's gaze. Neither of us spoke, just stared at each other. His eyes told me he knew I'd act soon. That old jailer was kind-hearted. Once his companion fell asleep, I'd call him in. Just then, Xiao Xing tapped the wooden bars. Dinner, he said. The guard, dozing, jolted awake and hastily offered his own midnight snack to Xiao Xing. Hey! He called again, his eyes fixed on me. The guard fumbled to feed him. Xiao Xing shot him a glance and coldly ordered, Get lost. Yes, sir. The guard understood and turned to me with a pleading look. I agreed, still holding the ladle. I looked at Xiao Xing. Has the general given up on death? Xiao Xing ate the rice in his spoon and raised an eyebrow at me. Do you think you can walk out? I shook my head. But I have to try. It was precisely because the odds were so slim that I came to beg him. But since he refused, I had no choice but to rely on myself. Risk your life? Risk my life. We stared at each other in silence. Why aren't you begging me? His voice was low, like grit scraping against my ear, tinged with a hint of mockery. Was he waiting for me to beg him? Why? The beauty ploy couldn't sway him, and I truly had nothing left to offer. The Yun Manor was now a crumbling ruin, with nothing left to promise him. My thoughts raced. Steeling myself, I grasped his hand. I beg you, General, I murmured softly. Let me go. As long as I live, 1,000 possibilities remain. My sisters and brothers, my clan's lives. If Xiao Xing wills it, we all have a chance. I couldn't fathom why he changed his mind, but he was undoubtedly the strongest lifeline I could grasp. If he was willing, I'd sacrifice everything. His gaze was sharp, piercing my face, peeling back layer after layer. I tightened my grip on his hand. Are you sure? He asked. I'm sure, I replied. No regrets? None. He swept aside the bowl, clasping my hand in his. Just then, the iron latch on the wall behind him rattled loose, wrenching free from its roots as dust swirled. I stared at him in shock. He led me by the hand, step by step, toward the door. The chains on his collarbone were no burden to him, they became his weapon. Wherever he went, Sand and stones flew, and everything in his path was swept away. On the streets of the capital late at night, shadowy figures in black leapt about, surrounding Xiaoxing like starving wolves lurking in the darkness for too long. Fangs gleamed as they snapped the necks of the city guards. Hot blood splattering the ground. Xiaoxing swept me into his arms, leaping onto his horse and galloping away. The February night wind still carried a deep chill. Yet I felt warmth. This was my wind. The wind of life. Shouts erupted from the city walls. Someone yelled, "Miss Yin has abducted General Xiao. Report it to the court." I froze. Xiaoxing, however, smiled. "How is it that I abducted you?" I frowned. "I intended to die. You were imprisoned for 5 days. I escaped, claiming you abducted me. You bear no blame." Xiaoxing smiled faintly. Wasn't the general already planning to break out, but lacked a pretext? My arrival provided the perfect excuse, bewitched by a beauty. His mind clouded. I don't believe Xiaoxing would fall for such a ploy. He seems quite amused. Think what you will. I pressed my lips together. Then I shall think exactly that. Xiaoxing laughed heartily, his arm tightening around my waist. As long as you're happy. I couldn't help but smile too, then nervously fixed my gaze on the road. The night was pitch black, and I feared he might accidentally plunge horse and rider into a ditch. He, however, was completely at ease, riding swiftly yet steadily, both man and horse calm and composed. "Hold on for another hour, and we'll find a place to rest." Thinking I was anxious, he reassured me. "Don't be afraid. I'm here." "I'm not afraid," I replied. "Is that so?" He turned his head, his breath brushing my ear. "Poor thing. You're nearly crushing my arm." I hastily loosened my grip, embarrassment making my cheeks burn. My mother and the others were being escorted by different subordinates of Xiaoxing, traveling separately. We would reunite in the northern desert. In just 2 short hours. Xiaoxing's influence had already intimidated me. Now we'd stopped at a relay station. The station master treated him with reverence, as if Xiaoxing were merely passing through on official business. Why would a general willingly allow himself to be imprisoned? I held the medicinal ointment, waiting outside the cleansing room. Xiaoxing emerged from his bath, bare-chested, his body covered in startling, gruesome scars. He sat down, and I applied medicine to his back. Their evidence was irrefutable. I had no grounds to dispute it. So I remained in the cell for a few days. Xiaoxing casually inquired why he was accused of treason. His trusted deputy had defected to the crown prince, fabricating charges against him. After reviewing them, Xiaoxing even remarked on the charge's ingenious craftsmanship, praising the deputy's improved competence. As for why the court didn't execute him, he shrugged it off with a dismissive remark, as if the soldiers I raised were all vegetarians. I said, having narrowly escaped death, "General, you are destined for great fortune." He turned to look at me after dressing. "In that case," he said, "you must be a person of great fortune too." I smiled and agreed. "Thanks to your grace, General." He smiled without reply, then moved to recline on the bed. I paused by the bedside and removed my outer garments. "General, please make room. I'll sleep on the outer side so I can tend to you through the night." As I spoke, surprise flickered in his eyes, and his ears flushed slightly before he regained his composure. "You are the most intriguing woman Xiao has ever met." I loosened my hairpin and brought the lamp to rest beside the bed. "What's so interesting?" I asked him in the lamplight. He smiled without answering. I offered myself to beg the general to save my family. "Now that you've done so, I must keep my promise." I lowered my gaze, fingers clenched tightly, fear gripping my heart. I'd once imagined my wedding night, candlelight dancing on brocade quilts. warmth enveloping us. But never did I imagine it would be a transaction after my family's ruin, conducted in this ancient post station. You truly are a woman of your word. Xiao Xing propped his cheek, watching me. But I have a question too. I drew a deep breath, sat down on the bed's edge, and gestured for him to ask. After tonight, what are your plans? I snapped my head up to look at him, frowning. What do you mean? Is a fleeting affair all the general desires? It seems Miss Yun is the one seeking such a thing. Xiao Xing's expression darkened slightly, as if displeased with me. I stared at him in shock. Tell me about your plans for the future. Xiao Xing's gaze swept over my collarbone, paused for a moment, then shifted to the flickering candle flame. The candle flame danced, then went out. The room plunged into darkness, filled only with the sound of our breaths growing closer. I whispered, my brothers were exiled to the northern desert. I want to save them. First, I must protect my family's lives. Then I'll make plans. He suddenly sat up straight, leaning dangerously close. And then? He demanded. Slowly plot our return to the capital for revenge. I gripped the bed sheets, forcing myself to lean back. Even without seeing him, I could feel his overwhelming aggression. This man, he was like a wild beast, unlike any man I'd ever met. And then, he leaned forward again. If they're still alive, I'll live well. My arms began to tremble, unable to hold myself up. Suddenly, the pressure on my waist eased. He wrapped his arms around me, steadying me upright, and grumbled, "You talk too much." I was baffled. "Didn't you ask me?" He rolled over, facing away, and muttered, "I had a soft mattress delivered. You can sleep on it later." "Are you sure, General? You think I actually fell for your beauty trap?" He yanked the covers off and stared at me. I never knew anyone's eyes could glow so brightly in the dark. Discontent and mockery were laid bare in his gaze. "I told you, you're ugly. Your beauty trap won't work on me." With that, he turned back under the covers, ignoring me. This man, just as I was about to speak, the station master knocked, delivering a soft mattress and bedding, which he placed beside the bed. I lay down fully clothed and slept dreamless through the night. The next day we switched to a carriage, though pursued all along the way. Xiao Xing always found a way to evade them. I kept pondering why Xiao Xing was displeased. Pulling back the curtain to look outside, I saw 7 or 8 children playing in the fields. On impulse, I asked him, "General, do you like children?" He had been resting his eyes, but suddenly opened them to look at me, a smile tugging at his lips. That peculiar smile, its meaning only dawned on me when we reached the northern frontier. The carriage halted, and suddenly 7 or 8 children, boys and girls, burst onto the street, swarming around Xiao Xing. They chattered excitedly, father's back. One toddler, still learning to walk, called out "Daddy" in a slurred voice. He suddenly scooped up the toddler, thrust him into my arms, and commanded the child, "Call her mother." The little one wrapped his arms around my neck and planted a soft kiss on my cheek. Baring tiny teeth, he beamed at me and called out in a high-pitched voice, "Mommy." I looked at Xiao Xing, signaling for a reasonable explanation. After all, anyone suddenly saddled with 7 or 8 children calling them mother would be startled. Xiao Xing ruffled the child's hair and said to me with a challenging tone, "Looks like you'll need to add a few more kids to your future plans." With that, he swung his arms and strode off. He actually looked pleased. It suddenly dawned on me, was his resentment because that night, when I spoke of my plans, he wasn't included? I grabbed the oldest boy. "Can you tell me what's going on?" "Greetings, madam." The older boy refrained from calling me mother. "Our parents are both dead. The general placed us here under someone's care. None of us are the general's children. Just as I suspected. Where does the general reside? Led me there. I settled into Shaoxing's small courtyard. But he didn't return home for a month. Because half a year prior, the court had dispatched General Wang and Inspector Kai to take control of the northern frontier's military authority. Shaoxing has many matters to resolve. I didn't disturb him. My mother and I tidied the house, waiting for my brothers while finding things to occupy ourselves. The northern frontier is larger than I imagined. Soldiers are warriors in times of war. Civilians in times of peace. The reclaimed wasteland here is lush with wheat sprouts. Thriving beautifully. The northern frontier was nothing like the barren, sandy wasteland described in rumors. My eldest sister plucked a shriveled wheat ear, popped it into her mouth, and chewed with delight. It's sweet! It's sweet! Really? Let me try. All of this was new and exciting to us. We had fallen from the clouds of silk robes and fine food into the mud. But thankfully none of us were arrogant. We adapted quickly to our new environment and identities. Let's open a school, I said to my eldest sister. There are only 2 teachers here, both old and frail, and they aren't very dedicated. As daughters of the Yun family, we couldn't claim mastery of poetry, books, and the 6 arts, but we were more than capable of teaching children. Most importantly, we needed to do something meaningful, to prove our worth as human beings. My eldest sister nodded. I'll follow whatever you decide. Sister. The school was established. At first, it was indeed challenging. After all, our identities were unclear, and being women, some inevitably suspected us of being uneducated and unfit, fearing we might corrupt the children. So I stood on the street, holding the book of songs, reciting from morning until noon. Many came to listen. Some thought I was merely seeking attention. But after 2 days, they understood my purpose. 5 days later, the new academy, run by my eldest sister, myself, and 2 scholars, officially opened. Soon, the impoverished families of northern desert cities sent their children to us. I also revisited medical texts, memorizing herbal formulas and identifying medicinal plants. Before I knew it, May arrived. My uncles and elder brother arrived and entered the military camp. Shaoxing wrote to say everyone was alive. The last weight lifted from my heart, and I devoted myself more fully to teaching and studying medicine. I even apprenticed under a military doctor. Traveling to practice medicine. Snow began falling in northern desert as early as September. Opening the door one morning, I found a foot of snow piled in the courtyard. As I shoveled, footsteps sounded behind me. Turning, I saw Shaoxing, clad in a long black robe, leaning against the courtyard gate with his arms crossed, observing me with a faint, ambiguous smile. I laughed. Just arrived? Shaoxing hummed in acknowledgement, stepping into his courtyard. Surprised by the change from before, he paused for a moment. It was too sparse before. I used the household allowance you gave me to add some furniture. Does the general dislike it? I tried to take away the plum vase with flowers, but Shaoxing took it and placed it back where it was. He looked at me and said, "It feels like a home." That's good. I paused, then went to pour him tea. He watched my hands. Qing Xianxing. Qing Daifu, which should I call you? I wiped my rough hands, raising an eyebrow at him. What about the third title? Why does the general avoid mentioning it? What? His hand holding the teacup trembled. General's wife. I sat down, propping my cheek as I watched him. That's my favorite title. His gaze darkened. Suddenly, he lifted me and sat me on his lap, pinching my waist as he countered. You truly like it? His eyes locked on me like a predator's. making my heart skip beats. My trembling hands climbed onto his shoulders. He hadn't returned for half a year. This rare visit was my chance. Of course, I replied. He glanced at my hands on his shoulders, then lifted his gaze to meet mine. The earnestness and expectation on his face gradually faded, replaced instead by a sense of helplessness. What had I just done to make him look at me like that? I froze. But he had already pushed me up. His tone distant. They say you're quite capable. I'm entrusting the women and children of the city to you. However, the imperial court has already assembled troops to attack the northern desert. There are many spies in the city these days. Be careful in your actions. He was leaving. Xiao Xing. I was furious, blocking the door with my hands on my hips. You need to explain yourself before you go. I glared at him defiantly. Xiao Xing crossed his arms, eyeing me coldly. Don't play the innocent, coy maiden with me. I lowered my arms. What have you accomplished these past 6 months? Opening a school, practicing medicine for free, establishing a northern frontier merchants guild out of thin air. What else? He demanded. I faltered, my smile faltering. Establishing a guild? You just wanted to force me into opening a horse market with the frontier tribes. Didn't you? He suddenly seized my jaw, narrowing his eyes. What else have you done behind my back? I was forced to tilt my head back, meeting his gaze. Colluding with barbarians? Using them as external threats? Then manipulating me to stir internal unrest? Amidst foreign and domestic crises, you'd ride the wind back to seek revenge against the crown prince? Xiao Xing interrogated me, enunciating each word. Disappointment outweighed anger in his tone. I softened my voice, hoping to calm him. General, please calm your anger. I do seek revenge. He cut me off, his tone still relentless. Didn't you claim to covet the position of general's wife? Xiao Xing sneered. Still playing games? Never once considering genuine devotion, merely using me? The air froze solid. He pointed at me. Cunning indeed. Truly worthy of being Yun Shenxi's daughter. With that, he swept his sleeves and left. Watching his retreating figure, my own expression darkened. His implication was clear, Yun Shenxi was a villain. And as his daughter, I was naturally a villain too. I lowered my gaze to my own rough hands. Teaching and healing win the people's hearts. I wanted to open a horse market, but Xiao Xing refused. With Xiao Xing stationed here, the barbarians had long been cowed, daring not to invade. Yet I need the barbarians. So through the Merchants Guild, I extend my reach beyond the frontier. His Majesty and the Crown Prince have basked in peace too long, so long they've forgotten the barbarians' threat and savagery. They revel in song and dance, even daring to imprison Xiao Xing. They believe they can continue their nightly revelry without him. How naive! As for whether my father is a villain, I know the truth. He was merely a blade in the Crown Prince's hands. A sharp blade earned a place of honor in the hall. But when accountability came, the blade itself bore the blame. I intend to make the Crown Prince understand, the blade will turn against its master. The bitter fruit he has sown, I will deliver to his mouth at any cost. Let him swallow it. As for Xiao Xing, I remain uncertain why he agreed to break out of prison with me and return to the northern desert. But the outcome is what I desired. Though I haven't seen him these past 6 months, I can see that under his governance, the entire northern desert has become peaceful and serene. Xiao Xing possesses a heart of pure devotion, offering his boundless passion to the northern desert and its people. He is strong enough to be fearless, disdaining alliances with foreign powers. And I, possessing nothing, will spare no expense in exhausting every scheme, advancing slowly but surely. Suddenly, the door pushed open. I thought it was Xiao Xing, but it was my little sister instead. carrying a bag full of apples and winter jujubes. The general gave them to me. He's so kind. She crunched into a jujube, then offered one to me. Mother says the trade routes to the north are blocked. These fruits from the south are more precious than gold now. My heart felt like it had been pricked by a needle. Mother invited the general to stay for dinner, but he said he had business and left. Little sister asked me mysteriously, "Did you two have a fight?" I nodded. We argued a bit. Little sister declared flatly, "Then it must be big sister's fault." I pinched her cheek. "He started it." "How is it my fault?" I overheard my aunt whispering to my mother. She said, "Your eldest sister wants to secure the position of general's wife without truly winning his heart. The general won't be fooled so easily." I rubbed my temples. What else did she say? "Your aunt also said you're being clever to a fault with the general. You use your beauty to charm him. He's 25 now. If he were the type to be swayed by looks, he'd have a harem by now." I covered my little sister's mouth. "Hurry to school. No more eavesdropping on grown-ups." My little sister carried away all the fruit she'd brought. Because I'd bullied her general. Clutching the loan date left. I couldn't help but smile bitterly. "Sister." My eldest sister followed in. "A traveling merchant surnamed Xiao is looking for you. He's waiting at the crossroads." I tossed the date to my eldest sister and hurried out, grabbing my cloak. "Sister, why are you buying furs from beyond the frontier? The general could get you better ones." My eldest sister chased after me with questions. "I want to make the general a great cloak. How could I let him get furs for me?" I stared at my eldest sister. "Keep this a secret for me." The younger sister nodded, then pressed. "Why specifically from beyond the frontier? Barbarian goods reek." Xiao Mini was a traveling merchant I'd met while standing on the street reading to recruit students. He was 27 this year, having taken over his father's trade in goods from both sides of the frontier. The trade was substantial, but it was a cutthroat business. After Xiao Xing was imprisoned last year, the barbarians grew restless, stirring trouble several times. Once, he and his brother were collecting pelts from nomads beyond the frontier. The barbarians, seeing they were Han Chinese, killed his brother on the spot. He narrowly escaped death, but lost the use of one leg, becoming a cripple. Xiao Mini and I stood at the crossroads. I pretended to inspect the furs in his cart while chatting with him. "So?" The barbarian chief said, "If you kill General Xiao, he'll lend you troops." Xiao Mini relayed. "Understood." I calmly exchanged a fur pelt. A verbal agreement is worthless. "Did you write and seal the letter as I instructed?" Xiao Mini slipped the letter into the leather and handed it to me. "Madam, this leather would suit the general." "Thank you." I cradled the leather and asked him the price. Xiao Mini couldn't help but ask, "Madam, do you truly intend to kill the general?" A matter of a cup of poisoned wine. No matter how capable Xiao Xing is, he won't survive arsenic. "You needn't worry for me," I replied casually. "Has my letter been sent?" Xiao Min's expression flickered with surprise. After a moment of silence, he nodded. "But will Song Yin even reply? He's your enemy, after all." I handed him the banknote. "This is the household allowance Xiao Xing gave me. For the past 6 months, he'd sent me 100 taels at the start of every month." I took it without hesitation, leaving not a single coin behind. "No hatred," I said. "Only interests." Xiao Mini also sought wealth rivaling a nation, fulfilling his father and elder brother's dying wishes. How could one amass such wealth? He didn't know, nor did I. But we could strive together. He was gambling, and so was I. He said we were like rats in a sewer, wicked and filthy. I told him not to fear. Once we succeeded, we'd pay historians to rewrite history. Xiao Mini chuckled. agreeing it was a clever plan. I returned to read the letter written by the barbarian chieftain. His handwriting was ugly, but it was unmistakably his characters and seal. I stared intently at the characters, carefully tracing them. Then I turned over another piece of chicken bloodstone and carved a seal. 10 days later, Song Yan's reply arrived. He answered each point, stating he could help me return to the capital, grant me a new identity, and take me as his concubine. Song Yan's calligraphy was beautiful, far easier to copy than the barbarian's ugly scrawl. I recognized his handwriting, but alas, the sudden confiscation of my family's property left me no time to send a sample. 2 days later, I composed my reply, sought out Xiao Mini, and asked him to deliver it to the chieftain. Everything I needed to say was contained within the letter. Xiao Mini agreed and departed immediately. The letter's content was straightforward. I confirmed my agreement to kill Xiaoxing and inquired how many troops he could lend. I also informed him that the imperial forces would attack the northern frontier on the 2nd day of the 10th lunar month, requesting he mobilize his forces on the 3rd. 4 days later, Xiao Mini returned with the reply. The next day, I replied to Song Yan. This time, I didn't go through Xiao Mini. I personally carried the letter to the postal station. As the postal clerk rode out of the city, I stood at the crossroads and watched him depart. On my way home, I bought half a pound of wine and some meat dishes at the crossroads. I had just finished preparing them when Xiaoxing pushed open the door. His gaze lingered on the fur coat I was sewing. For whom? He asked, sitting down at the table laden with bowls, chopsticks, wine, and dishes. Do we have guests? He looked weary from the journey, his face weathered by the biting cold. He had grown noticeably thinner, though his eyes remained sharp. I lifted the garment. Shall I try it on for you, General? Xiaoxing tried it on. The fit was perfect. Just need to add 3 buttons. I helped him undress, but he stroked the coat and muttered, "No rush. Let me wear it first." "All right," I replied, gesturing toward the table. "Haven't eaten yet?" The wine's still warm, perfect for drinking. I poured him a cup. Xiaoxing stared at the wine before him, his fingers tapping the table. He looked up at me, his eyes bloodshot. "What's wrong?" I asked. "Too tired?" "Nothing. Just smelling the wine makes me feel grateful for having a home. That's all." Xiaoxing lifted the cup to his lips. Before drinking, he asked again, "You really want me to drink this?" I nodded. "It was meant for the general," I said with a smile. "Last time you were angry, so consider this wine my apology." He gripped the cup, his knuckles turning white, then suddenly raised his head and downed it in one gulp. He lowered his gaze to look at me again. "The aroma is sweet, but the taste cuts like a blade." He slammed the cup onto the table and stared at me with scorn. "Xiaoxing is blind indeed, I mistook the wine." Xiaoxing's breathing was uneven. I reached out and took his hand. I'd been in the north for half a year, yet the general had never once accompanied me out. Others would surely think my title as general's wife was self-proclaimed. His palm was broad and warm, with thin calluses and a scar. I gently traced that scar, then turned to smile at him. Doubt flickered in his eyes. Our first time out together. The weather was splendid today. I stopped before the old wine cellar and said with a smile, "My general says your liquor is exceptional." The old man bowed repeatedly, then handed Xiaoxing another half-pound to carry. Xiaoxing paid, took the flask, glanced at our clasped hands, then looked at me. The villagers surrounded him, all asking what they should do if imperial troops attacked. Should the city's militia take up arms? Xiaoxing instructed them to simply defend the city and not venture out. As he spoke, he suddenly paused, then clenched my hand tightly. Pfft! He coughed up a mouthful of blood. Then, staring at me. He collapsed straight onto the ground. The street fell silent. Even the wind seemed to stop. Then, the whole street erupted in clamor. Wails rose from all sides. I crouched beside Xiaoxing, my hands still clasped in his. His eyes remained open, fixed intently on me. On the 27th day of the 9th month, Xiaoxing was struck by a deadly poison. No medicine could cure him, he clung to life by a thread. The entire street bore witness. Xiaoxing was carried to the military camp. That night, seated at the table, my mother pointed at me and screamed, "Yun Pingqing. You're just like your father, scheming and short-sighted." When my father sought refuge with the crown prince, my mother had opposed him. "You don't understand these matters. I have my own plans," I told her. Hearing this, she collapsed into her chair. For these were the very words my father had once spoken to her, and now, years later, her own daughter used them against her. "You may be cunning, but you must not harm loyal men." "That is Xiaoxing, Xiaoxing," my mother cried. I said nothing. "You've brought this upon yourself." My mother left, her spirit broken. "The Yun family has been cursed for generations, it has nothing to do with me. I won't care anymore. I won't care." September 29th. Xiaoxing remained unconscious. Though anxious, the northern frontier's troops remained unshaken. Such was Xiaoxing's influence even if he truly died. Chaos would not grip the frontier. October 2nd. Imperial forces arrived at the northern frontier. With Xiaoxing's impending death, their morale soared. Yet the southern city gates remained firmly shut, refusing to engage. On the 3rd day of the 10th month, the barbarians arrived. 3,000 troops launched a fierce assault on the northern gate. But the northern gate remained firmly shut, refusing to engage. The northern frontier was besieged, facing both internal turmoil and external threats. Xiao Min sat with me in the courtyard, sipping tea, her anxiety palpable as she asked, "Madam, what should we do next?" "I don't know," I replied. "Are the rice and charcoal reserves prepared by the merchant sufficient?" "Sufficient. We stocked up when the court sealed the trade routes earlier." I nodded. Xiao Mini paced the courtyard, his lame leg causing him to stagger unevenly. It reminded me of when Song Yan's superior reprimanded him and he came to beg my help. His superior had a leg ailment, also walking unevenly, and was a fierce man. I had initially refused, but Song Yan kept pleading with me. Song Yan was most handsome when he begged. His eyes were soft and reddened, a sight that stirred pity in me. I wanted to see him beg me again. On the 4th day of the 10th month, the northern frontier became a trap, the first day of being besieged by 2 armies. I received a letter from the barbarians, demanding I find a way to open the northern city gate. I burned the letter. On the 10th day of Mobay's siege, a letter arrived from Song Yan. He ordered me to leave the city, promising to send men to escort me back to the capital. I burned that letter too. On the 15th day of the siege, news reached us from the capital. Song Yan had been imprisoned on charges of treason. The accusation and evidence were letters proving his collusion with the barbarians. The letters were, of course, written by me. With so many spies within the city, not a single word or deed of mine could escape Xiaoxing's notice, nor the eyes of those in the capital. In the court's campaign against the northern wastes, every despicable tactic was permissible, except colluding with the barbarians. The nature of the matter was entirely different. Now, with the barbarians and the imperial forces coordinating so seamlessly in a joint operation, collusion was the only plausible explanation. On the 17th day of the northern frontier siege, Song Yan's plea reached me. I replied, instructing him to await my return to the capital. That day brought continuous good news. The barbarians' supplies were exhausted, forcing their retreat within the capital. The emperor had confined the crown prince. Song Yen was the crown prince's trusted subordinate, and the campaign against the northern wastes had been entirely under the crown prince's command. His Majesty is only 48. Might he suspect his son of plotting to seize the throne prematurely? October 22nd. With Qiao Mini's assistance, I slipped out of the city. Song Yan's men awaited me outside the walls. I traded my carriage for a horse and rode at full speed toward the capital. Before departing, I left a letter and a prescription at home. The letter was lengthy. I wished to serve you with my beauty, yet you remained steadfast in your virtue. I am forever indebted to you. To accompany you to the northern desert is a blessing for me and my entire clan. This land is yours, General, but it is also the future home of my Yun clan. I humbly ask for your continued kindness and protection. As for the grudge between my father and you, leave that to me to settle. Will you smile when you read this? General? How could a mere woman speak with such boldness? I once read a martial tale. A knight-errant wielded a peerless pair of mother and child blades. When locked in mortal combat, he would deliberately let his foe parry the mother blade. Just as the enemy gloated over their victory, the child blade would flash forth, striking with a fatal blow, never failing. My father was that mother blade, and I am the child blade. Trust me, General. Await good news. On the 29th of October, I reached the capital. 7 days of roughing it left me gaunt and haggard. I went to the Ministry of Justice prison. This time I stood outside the wooden bars. Song Yen was inside. Seeing me, his eyes welled with tears. Song's mother pleaded with me, "Young miss, Yuanin didn't deserve this. He did nothing wrong. He's been wrongfully accused. You must explain to His Majesty that the letters were all written by you. As a woman bearing guilt, your burdens are many. If you can save Yuanin, you will also be accumulating virtue for yourself." I looked at Song Yen. Why doesn't Magistrate Song plead for himself? These were the words Song Yen spoke to me at that time. He too knelt before me, his eyes red and soft, pleading with me in a way that stirred my pity. Master Yuanin begs for the young lady's rescue. Once released, he will marry you and remain faithful for life. Such a dashing and gallant Master Song indeed. I crouched before him. Master Song, wait for me. Song Yin gazed at me with delight. An hour later, I met His Majesty in the study. The emperor had reigned for 28 years. Mediocre and unremarkable, neither achieving great deeds nor committing grave faults. He asked me, "Since you had the audacity to return, you must be prepared. Speak. I am listening." I replied, "Yes, Your Majesty. That day in prison, I seduced Shaoxing with my charms. To be with me forever, he helped me escape to the northern desert." The emperor showed no surprise, for he had surely investigated this matter. But I never loved Shaoxing. My deep affection and loyalty belonged to Magistrate Song. A look of contempt flashed across the emperor's face. "Did you poison Shaoxing?" the emperor demanded. I answered, "Yes." "Did Magistrate Song instruct you to collude with the barbarians?" the emperor pressed. I denied it urgently. No. No. Magistrate Song had nothing to do with it. I acted alone. His Majesty flung the intercepted letters at my face, roaring, "What could a mere woman like you possibly gain by killing Shaoxing and colluding with barbarians?" I gathered these letters myself and delivered them to the postal station. Their hijacking en route was entirely within my expectations. I prostrated myself, babbling incoherently. It was truly this sinful woman's doing. Master Song had nothing to do with it. "Please, Your Majesty, investigate clearly." My haggard face and tear-filled eyes made me look every inch the mindless fool taking the fall for her husband. "Silence." His Majesty flung his sleeves, his voice sharp. "You conspiring with barbarians, does Shaoxing truly know nothing of this?" I stared at his majesty in stunned disbelief. The barbarians ordered me to kill him. Why would your majesty suspect Xiao Xing of colluding with them? Xiao Xing's imprisonment stemmed from charges of colluding with foreign powers and treason. The evidence came from his deputy commander. With Xiao Xing dead, all his past accusations collapse without proof. You return to the capital to clear Song Yan's name. Do you know what awaits you? I nodded. A guilty woman deserves her punishment. His Majesty leaned forward, his gaze fixed on me. What did he promise you, that you would travel 1,000 miles to die for him? This humble woman did not act for him. I merely sought to reveal the truth. His Majesty laughed contemptuously. Did Song Yan promise to clear the Yun family's name? I hung my head in guilt. Where does he get such confidence? His Majesty declared. He's already a prisoner beneath my feet. If I order your death, who could save you? I kept my head bowed, neither arguing nor panicking. The Emperor instantly understood. My composure didn't come from Song Yan, but from the Crown Prince. I couldn't mention the Crown Prince directly. I had no direct connection to him. My only task was to protect Song Yan with my life. The Emperor would find his own answers to the rest. The Emperor flew into a rage, striding over and gripping my throat. All decorum abandoned, he demanded, "Whose realm is this?" Panic seized me, and I stammered, "Yours, Your Majesty." And the Crown Prince's. Truth comes out when death is near. I received 30 strokes of the court cane, imprisoned in the cell once occupied by Xiao Xing. My punishment wasn't for taking the blame for Song Yan, but because a dagger fell from my sleeve. His Majesty demanded why I attempted to assassinate him. I remained silent. Sometimes, suspicion cuts deeper than truth. What might His Majesty suspect? That his son, impatient for his death, had killed the loyal General Xiao Xing, colluded with foreign powers, and sent his capable lieutenant, his own fiancé, to a foolish death in an assassination plot. The Crown Prince couldn't wait for him to die. Those 30 strokes were worth it. Now I lay here, gazing across the distance at Song Yan. We exchanged a brief smile. His voice cracked as he called my name. I paid him no further heed. I was waiting. 2 days later, at midnight, the jailers discussed His Majesty's rebuke of the imperial uncle. The next day, Consort Lu suffered a miscarriage. She claimed it was the Empress's doing. His Majesty immediately struck the Empress across the face, calling her a poisonous woman. This was the beginning. I forced myself to endure. The old jailer fed me water and whispered, "Since the young miss is gone, why return to meet your death for Magistrate Song?" "Thank you," I replied, offering him a faint smile. The young miss was a good person. The jailer murmured, "The capital citizens all believe I killed Xiao Xing. Now they curse me more than they cursed my father." "I'm no saint, nor do I wish to be one," I replied. Xiao Xing was a saint. What did he gain? Did he feel pain when the blade pierced his collarbone? Did his heart grow cold during these 6 months of silent confinement? My heart is frozen, feverish and dazed. The jailer told me the Emperor had deposed the Crown Prince. What day is it today? The 6th. 7 days. His Majesty acted even more hastily than I anticipated. I sat up and looked at Song Yan. Song Yan was staring back at me, asking word by word, "Minister Yun Pingqing, this was all your scheme, wasn't it? What else could it be? Did you truly believe, Minister Song, that your dashing charm made me unable to forget you?" I sneered coldly. Madame Song screamed across the room, calling me a slut, saying I was as treacherous as my father. Song Yan's rage boiled over. "You killed Xiao Xing. You caused my death. And now you orchestrated the Crown Prince's downfall. This will come to light sooner or later. Yun Pingqing, you're as shameless as your father, utterly without limits." I smoothed the disheveled hair at my temple. You're too simplistic. Methods may be black or white, but outcomes are not. Song Yin looked up at me, his face frozen in shock. I spoke calmly, my father a traitor? In these 15 years of court service, which minister's achievements even half-matched his? In a mediocre dynasty, blind loyalty only leads to obscurity. Just like the emperor's own mediocrity. My father took unconventional paths, so what if he bore infamy? Every ambition he set when he earned his official rank, he achieved. I glared at Song Yin. My father is dead. Can you replace him? Song Yin, you're not even worth the dirt beneath my father's shoes. A mediocre monarch. An incompetent crown prince even when eliminating those who obstruct governance. He fears the stigma and relies on others' hands. Predictably, his reign will prove no wiser than his father's. I sat down where Xiao Xing had been seated. The cell door swung open. Song Yin was let in, the iron collar around his neck identical to the one I'd seen the day I entered. Yun Pingqing, you'll meet a wretched end too. You vile woman. I smiled and waved goodbye to him. Song Yin slammed his head against the wooden bars, clawing at them. Fear gripped him. Young miss, you promised to help me for the rest of your life. Go plead with the emperor. I don't want to die. Do you deserve it? I asked him. Song Yin was dragged out. His red-eyed, desperate expression was a sight I relished. I was exhausted. My back was raw and throbbing unbearably, forcing me to lie down again. Yet watching Song's mother writhing on the floor was rather amusing. That day, Song Yin was beheaded. Half a year earlier, my father had met his end there too. People must make choices. Mine was to protect my clan's lives, avenge my father, and not tarnish Xiao Xing's name. The people need him. From now on, cursing me will become Song's mother's reason for living. The crown prince is the crown prince, the emperor's eldest legitimate son, utterly cherished. Once the emperor's anger subsides, the crown prince's position will still be his. Then I'll have you. You wretch. Torn limb from limb. Mother Song spoke with a grain of truth. Yet it made no sense. Without choice, would I relentlessly pursue the sole heir apparent until death? The empress is ruthless. 8 princes have died beneath the crown prince, each in gruesome ways. But 2 princes remain in the harem now. The 7-year-old Prince Duan and the 3-year-old 11th prince. So I wait. Soon. How soon? Just as Song's mother fell asleep from exhaustion after her tirade, someone entered my compartment. A figure cloaked in black hooded robes crouched before me. Is Miss Yun waiting for me? Your Excellency. The imperial uncle. I pressed my parched lips together. How did you come here? The man opposite me was the Marquis of Loyalty and Diligence, the Prince of Duan's uncle and the brother of Consort Zhang. He wasn't the imperial uncle. Of course. But his ambition surely lay in becoming one. He smiled, his wrinkles deepening. Did the young lady truly poison Xiao Xing? How could that be? I stroked my temple. He was my husband. What woman would kill her own husband? The Earl of Zhongqi nodded with a smile. Just as I thought. A daughter so carefully groomed by Yunshin to become empress would never commit such folly. I nodded. But I hear Xiao Xing and you never consummated your marriage? The Earl of Zhongqi asked me. This place is filthy and chaotic. What brings the imperial uncle here? I countered instead of answering. The Earl of Zhongqi paced with his hands behind his back, stopping before me. Did you foresee I would come to rescue you? I shook my head. Wasn't I asking you? He crouched down again, lowering his voice. Tomorrow night, someone will take you away from here. But Yun Pingqing, HM? I looked at him. I rescue you. And you must make Xiao Xing support Prince Duan. I'm about to die. Even if rescued, it would only be a worthless life. I sighed and closed my eyes again. You needn't trouble yourself. Passively gambling on someone else's feelings for me? That's a foolish thing I won't do. Besides, I was certain the Earl of Loyalty would rescue me. He couldn't use me to pressure Shaoxing, but he'd send me to the palace to assist his sister. When I became the emperor's consort, even if the crown prince made a comeback, I, Yun Pingqing, would be the first target. Only then would the Prince of Duan come into play. Sure enough, the Marquis of Loyalty and Diligence gritted his teeth and whispered, "At midnight tomorrow, someone will come to take you away." I feigned gratitude. "Thank you for your trouble, Your Excellency." The Marquis of Loyalty and Diligence was displeased with my attitude, but unable to argue his case now. He stormed off in a huff. The second night, I left the cell. The capital at midnight was unchanged from half a year ago, snow falling, the occasional bark of dogs echoing nearby. A skilled old woman carried me on her back. I opened my eyes slightly, taking in the night scene. To be alive. How wonderful! A snowflake landed on my hand. Before it could melt, a fierce gust swept in, tossing me into the air. Like that snowflake, I fell into a warm embrace. He caught me securely. I smiled. A warm cloak enveloped me from head to toe, fastened tightly across my chest, pressed close like the legendary mother and child daggers. I shifted slightly, only to be patted down by him. "You're heavy. If you keep moving, I won't be able to carry you." I replied. Shaoxing forced the loyal Diligence Marquis to the Crown Prince's residence. The guards there were practically non-existent, once again proving that Shaoxing held far more than just the north in his grasp. His influence in the capital was already all-pervasive. We entered the Crown Prince's bedchamber. Shaoxing handed the sword to the loyal Diligence Marquis, saying, "I'll watch. You strike." The sword hummed in Zhongqin Marquis's hands as he trembled. Shaoxing was patient, but I couldn't wait. I sneered, "Marquis, if you don't kill us, you can leave. You'll never get another chance." "General, the Marquis is cowardly and afraid of trouble. Let's go." "I see. Let's go." Shaoxing carried me and turned to leave. "Wait!" The Earl of Loyal Diligence smothered the Crown Prince's face with a pillow, then replaced it with a dagger thrust into the prince's chest. The Crown Prince struggled a few times before his last breath left him. "Your Royal Highness, the general and I must journey on. You should also return home and rest early." I reminded Shaoxing. "General, don't forget your sword." Shaoxing hummed in acknowledgement, tightened his embrace around me, and left the Crown Prince's residence. Did Shaoxing return that night? No. If Shaoxing didn't return, then he certainly wasn't the one who saved me. His absence meant the Crown Prince's death bore no connection to him. As for the Earl of Zhongqin, as long as His Majesty lived, both his and Prince Duan's lives remained in Shaoxing's hands. Killing the Crown Prince of this dynasty? Exterminating 9 clans wouldn't suffice. As for the future? That could wait. Shaoxing carried me for a quarter of an hour before pushing open a door. Then, my cloak was loosened. Warm air washed over me. Pushing aside the covering, I saw him. His face was dark and sullen, his brows and eyes heavy with exhaustion. His gaze was cold as he stared at me. "Miss, you're quite the schemer. Who else do you plan to manipulate next?" "General." I smiled, my guilt making me unsure how to face him. Shaoxing raised his hand, cutting me off. Truthfully, I didn't know what to say. I was glad he'd come to rescue me, yet I wished he hadn't. At dawn, news of the Crown Prince's murder would spread. The Emperor's wrath would be thunderous. If he took me with him then, escape would be impossible. I only want to ask, did you scheme all this from the moment you first saw me? I shook my head. I was merely taking things step by step. Shaoxing pressed further, Then tell me, what's your next move? His gaze fixed on me. His tone detached yet commanding without a trace of anger. My heart felt heavy. I shook my head. I hadn't expected you to come. So your next move was to enter the palace? He demanded, struggling to contain his fury. I lowered my gaze, refusing to meet his eyes. It was indeed my plan. On my own, I could never guarantee my family's safety forever. Entering the palace was the choice requiring the least sacrifice yet offering the greatest reward. Only by grasping power could I truly control my own destiny. Xiao Xing rose, his rage boiling yet forced back. I'll give you one night to consider. You wish to enter the palace? I'll grant you that. Xiao Xing no longer looked at me, walking away without a glance back. I watched his retreating figure inside. At dawn, Xiao Xing pushed open the door. I sat by the bed, waiting for him. Seeing me, he paused, but his face hardened the next moment. Have you made up your mind? I nodded. You wish to enter the palace? His eyes flashed with anger as he spoke. I waved my hand. No. I wish to return to the northern wastes. Xiao Xing paused, his expression shifting rapidly. He walked to the table, poured himself a cup of cold tea, and drank it in one gulp. Yun Ping Qing. The northern desert isn't a place you can come and go as you please. I nodded in acknowledgement. Xiao Xing stared at me. As he turned to leave, I called after him, I need a clean set of clothes. If possible, I'd also like to bathe. His footsteps halted. I know, he said impatiently, then walked out. The death knell sounded. The capital must be in chaos now. I regretted sending him to find clean clothes. I quietly opened the door to peek outside. My gaze swept the area and suddenly met his. I hurriedly opened the door. Did you encounter any danger buying clothes? None of your concern. He tossed the clothes down and left again. A moment later, he returned carrying a bucket of hot water and some medicinal ointment. He didn't look at me while doing any of this. I bathed, changed, and applied the ointment myself. Xiao Xing called through the door, Are you done yet? Almost. I stared at my reflection. The scab wound on my back had torn open again. A gruesome sight. Xiao Xing hadn't left. I hastily sprinkled a handful of powdered medicine on my back, quickly dressed, and opened the door. What is it? Did something happen? He wouldn't be standing outside the door if nothing was wrong. His gaze swept over me, finally resting on my powder-dusted hands. But he said nothing. I lay in bed for 3 days. Sometimes I was awake, but mostly I slept. Xiao Xing paid me no mind, like a jailer who'd tossed down a bowl of food and walked away. On the 3rd night, I followed Xiao Xing out of the small courtyard. 3 horses stood outside. I walked up and took one by the reins, only to see 2 guards approaching. Each took a horse and said awkwardly, Madam, these horses are ours. Then what do I ride? I asked, eyeing the remaining horse. Xiao Xing had already mounted his horse, looking down at me from above. The situation is urgent, and horses are hard to find. We're sorry to inconvenience Miss Yun. No. I approached, and he pulled me onto the saddle. This wasn't the first time we'd shared a horse. But last time I'd embraced it with a spirit of self-sacrifice, fearless and undaunted. Today felt different. Without the boldness to undress before him, I found myself awkward and self-conscious. I understood his anger at my distrust, his rage over the poison I'd used against him. He wouldn't accept my repayment through seduction. Once we returned to the northern wastes, I'd find another way to repay him. Hold tight, Xiao Xing whispered in my ear. If you fall, I won't catch you. I didn't retort. I obediently gripped the saddle stirrup and stayed still. Xiao Xing visibly startled for a moment. then said nothing more to me. We slipped silently out of the capital city and galloped swiftly along the official road. Several times I wanted to ask him about the events unfolding in the capital these past days. But the words died on my lips each time. The wind bitingly cold. I shivered. Xiaoxing suddenly reined in his horse to a halt. I looked at him, puzzled. He abruptly lifted me up and turned me to face him. Sitting opposite him, I stared at him in shock. He held me tight. With brute force. He made my arms wrap around his waist. Then wrapped me in his own cloak against his chest. "Don't move," he said, "or I'll throw you off." I wanted to look up and see his expression as he said this. But I couldn't see anything. Only warmth. And drowsiness. I fell asleep. And I had a dream. In it, I saw my father. He told me to let go. To choose a husband and live a peaceful life. I told him the crown prince was dead. That Xiaoxing had forced the loyal and diligent marquis to act. My father said that while the current emperor was no wise ruler, replacing the crown prince would bring greater uncertainty. It wouldn't be good for Xiaoxing or our family. For us. The crown prince's death cuts off a future threat. I spoke at length. Clinging to him and weeping. Father asked if the wound on my back hurt. Choking back sobs. I replied, "It hurts." I never imagined the court cane could strike so painfully. When I lay in the dungeon, rats, drawn by the scent of blood, leaped over my body. Father. I was so afraid. How could I not be? I was raised in the palm of my father's hand. I could theorize about the affairs of the world on paper. But I had never tasted real hardship. As a child, pricking my finger while embroidering would bring tears to my eyes. But my safe haven was gone. I had to endure, protecting my family in his place. Whether kneeling to do my duty or standing tall as a person, my only goal was for everyone to survive. Only by staying alive can anything be possible. A heavy sigh echoed above my head, jolting me awake as if plunged into icy water. Xiaoxing's face was right before mine. I was pressed against his chest. Only my face exposed. So close that our breaths mingled. His features were sharp and handsome. His gaze gentle. Looking at him, my heart skipped a beat, and I hastily lowered my eyes. The horse halted by the roadside. His rough fingers gently wiped the tears from my cheeks. "What did you dream about? Crying so bitterly?" I averted my eyes, saying nothing. "When you speak to me, it's either flattery or lies. Not a single truth?" Xiaoxing turned my face toward him, his tone tinged with displeasure. "I didn't lie to you," I protested. "Then you've been deceiving me all along?" I couldn't refute that. "Not speaking again?" Xiaoxing waited a moment, then gritted his teeth. "Fine. Don't speak. Yun Pingqing. You have no heart." He bundled me into his cloak and spurred the horse forward. I couldn't sit steady and had to cling tightly to him. The next day, Xiaoxing arranged a carriage for me and had 4 of his men escort me on the journey. Before leaving, he tossed back, "Figure out where you went wrong. Then come find me." I knew where I'd gone wrong, but I didn't quite grasp his meaning. Upon reaching the northern desert, my mother and aunts held me and wept uncontrollably. During my bath, my mother stared at the scar on my back, weeping and cursing my father. Unsatisfied, she then turned her scolding toward me. I clasped her hand. "It's all in the past. From now on, we'll live well here in the desert." My mother glared at me. "You're so full of tricks. I don't believe you'll live well." She said if Xiaoxing wouldn't marry me, she'd find another family for me. Only through marriage would I settle down. I let her fuss about it. After my wounds healed, I went to school. I heard about the final disposition of the crown prince's death. That very night, the Marquis of Loyalty set a fire. The flames were so fierce when the crown prince was carried out. He was nothing but charred remains. The autopsy yielded no clues. Imperial proclamations were posted throughout the capital, declaring me a traitor and rebel. Anyone who saw me was to kill me on the spot. The imperial troops withdrew from the northern wilderness. The emperor learned Shaoxing was not dead, and Shaoxing submitted a memorial explaining the situation, that his health had not yet recovered and he would return to the capital once he was well. The emperor gave no clear approval or disapproval. The Shaoxing of today was no longer someone he could kill at will or meet whenever he pleased. Qiao Mini also came to find me, asking if the horse market would still open. It wouldn't, but the business could continue. I told Qiao Mini that the flour and grain here were excellent and could be traded. The people of the northern frontier all know I am Yun Pingqing. They care little for my status, but they no longer call me general's wife. Instead, they address me as young miss. Thanks to the efforts of my mother and aunts, the marriage of young miss has become a matter of concern for everyone in the northern frontier. Many young men wait for me outside my school. When I have time, I chat with them a bit. When I'm busy, I make an appointment for next time. Strangely, without exception, none of them ever showed up for our arranged meetings. After several such occurrences, I began to doubt my own appearance. Was I truly as ugly and repulsive as Shaoxing claimed? Qiao Mini flushed and said, "If the young miss were ugly, then there wouldn't be a single beautiful woman in the world." I was at a loss for words. "There's a new play tomorrow. Would the young miss care to attend?" he asked. "Sure." But the next day, when I went to the theater, Qiao Mini had also stood me up. Days passed without seeing him. Around me, aside from my tutor, there wasn't a single man left. Qiao Mini, passing by an inn, I spotted him. "Where have you been these days?" Unexpectedly, upon seeing me, Qiao Mini's face paled. He turned and sprinted down the alley. He looked as if I were a ghost come to claim his soul. Why run? I couldn't understand. So I went straight to his house to find him. He hid behind the door, too afraid to come out, only saying, "Think about where you went wrong. Who or what you should apologize to. You must face it bravely." Apologize? Just as I was about to ask, Qiao Mini peeked out half his face, glanced around left and right, tossed out those two sentences, and shut the door without coming out. "Hurry and find the general. Otherwise, every man who's been in contact with you will be summoned for questioning. The general is kind. Don't be afraid. Don't run away," he said. I stood on the street, surrounded by a bustling crowd of passers-by, many of whom greeted me. I smiled and responded to them, yet a strange feeling lingered in my heart. Truthfully, I still couldn't fathom Shaoxing's intentions. My eldest sister said Shaoxing had feelings for me. In the quiet of night, I'd indulge in romantic thoughts, wondering if his two rescues stemmed from affection. But whenever we met, those fantasies shattered. He'd glare at me coldly, constantly calling me ugly, disliking my insincerity and lack of openness. This isn't how affection behaves. It wasn't mutual admiration or attraction, not even the most basic physical spark. How could this be love? Could he still be angry about me poisoning him? But he isn't like me, resorting to any means. He's an open-hearted man. Now that things have been laid bare, he wouldn't hold a grudge. Unable to figure it out, I didn't want to risk provoking his disdain. I continued teaching in the mornings, practicing medicine with my master in the afternoons, and visiting the Merchants Guild every other day. My days were extremely fulfilling. Where is he? Arriving at the academy, I found the children absent. My eldest sister was drying books, wiping sweat as she replied that the master had declared a 3-day holiday for spring outings. Holiday? Why wasn't I consulted? My sister whispered suspiciously that she'd only just learned of it herself. I had no choice but to seek out my master. Yet today, the ever-busy master was unexpectedly resting. The clinic doors were locked tight. I lingered at the clinic for a moment before heading to the Merchants Guild. Strangely, the usually bustling guild was deserted today, not a soul in sight. For 3 whole days I had nothing to do, spending my time sunbathing and reading in the courtyard. After finally enduring those 3 days, I was washing up in the courtyard one morning when I noticed the neighbor lady pacing back and forth in front of my courtyard 3 times. I asked her, "Is there something you need?" "Nothing," she replied. What could I possibly need? I continued combing my hair. The woman spoke again. "Ah, young lady." I just happened to run into you. You haven't heard, have you? I'll tell you, the general is ill. Very, very ill. I was utterly stunned. I have so much to do. I'm swamped. Swamped, the woman muttered as she walked away. I was about to head to the clinic to find my master and go together when, just around the corner, the old wine seller had already set up his stall at dawn. The old man saw me and said, "Young lady, last time the general said the wine was delicious. I'll send him 2 more bottles. You must help me deliver them to him today. Otherwise, it'll go bad by evening." Standing at the street corner with the wine, 15 minutes later I had a bunch of greens, a pair of shoes, a string of meat, and a goat hair brush in my hands. All things that had to be delivered to Shaoxing today, each with its own bizarre excuse. Holding all these items, I rubbed my temples. "Miss, are you heading out?" An old man pulled his cart before me. "I'm going to the barracks to fetch something. Shall I give you a ride?" I nodded. That would be a bother. Not at all. Not at all. Half an hour later, I stood outside the barracks for the first time. I'd imagined it filthy and chaotic. Dust swirling, dung everywhere. But in reality, the road was newly paved with green stone slabs, and the weeds along the sides were all trimmed to the same height. Once inside the camp, the spiders at the corners of the buildings were gone, replaced by fishing nets still sticky with wildflowers. The only people I saw on the paths were old soldiers. None of them particularly handsome. I looked up at the warm sun, and its light seemed to warm my heart too. Arriving at Zhao's quarters, I knocked and entered. He lay on his bed, back to the light. Spotting me, he rolled over, facing away, and coughed. "What brings you here? I heard you were ill." I placed my things on the table. "Where does it hurt?" I dragged a chair over and sat beside the bed. He said, still facing away, "Nothing fatal." "May I see?" I asked softly. "Xiao doesn't deserve that favor," he replied. "General?" I was wrong. I sat on the edge of his bed, tilting my head to look at him. "Please, in your magnanimity, forgive me?" He snorted. "Wrong where?" "I was wrong to think I could repay you with my looks alone, without offering my true heart," I murmured. He froze, his body stiffening, but he said nothing. I coaxed him with over a dozen more words. Yet he remained silent. Seems I was the one with too much affection. I sighed, rising to leave. "Then rest well. I'll come see you another day." But as I stood, he seized my wrist. He gripped it tightly, yet stubbornly refused to turn his head. Staring at his hand, I murmured, "I do feel something for you. But you find me ugly. Despise my dishonest ways. I just think a man as exceptional as you deserves a woman who shares your heart, who admires you. Only then would a lifetime together be truly worthwhile. Time and again I've tried to please you, even bearing myself. Yet you've only turned away with a dark expression." Tears welled in my eyes as my voice choked. "I'm destined to remain in the northern desert. I don't want to become a laughingstock for clinging to you." making my life here unbearable. Who dares mock you? He growled through gritted teeth. You. I didn't. He insisted, still refusing to look back. You did. I watched him out of the corner of my eye, beginning to sob softly. Hearing my tears, he abruptly sat up and pulled me into his embrace. Why are you so tearful? He murmured, sounding slightly flustered. Xiaoxing held me for a moment before pushing me away. His face grew cold, as if filled with regret. But my tears had truly dried up. So I stopped pretending to cry. You women. He snapped, his face taut. I should have known your words aren't trustworthy. He pointed at the lingering tear at my eye corner. Real crying or fake? What difference does it make if tears are real or fake? If it comes from the eyes, it can't be sweat. I took his hand, tilting my head to look at him. He flung my hand away, paced back and forth, then stopped impatiently before me. I asked about your heart, is it real or fake? And what about you, General? I countered. Is that even a question? Xiaoxing frowned. Do I look like someone who deceives? I shook my head. My feelings are genuine. You should have faith in yourself too. With your excellence, what maiden wouldn't be moved? His ears flushed slightly, his expression uneasy. He fell for my trick, so I pinched his cheek. He froze, the redness spreading rapidly from his ears. Had I known he felt this way, I would have approached him with more confidence, sparing myself these days of doubt and anxiety. But I could understand his feelings toward me. In his eyes, I must be ruthless in my actions. So he distrusted me. Like when I cried in front of him, he'd assume it was a ploy, not genuine sorrow. I didn't deny it. That's exactly who I am. Do you truly like me, General? He remained silent, looking away. I didn't press him. Instead, I took his hand, sat down, and laid my thoughts bare. I formally apologize. I admit I'm not straightforward. As I said, I possess nothing of value. To achieve my goals, resorting to any means is my method. My past actions were wrong. If you dislike this, I will change. I will stop using tactics against you. Is that acceptable? He looked at me in surprise, his eyes red and soft. As a military commander, you hold immense power. Even when my father was alive, marrying you was a step up for me. How much more so now that I bear the weight of my crimes? I lowered my gaze to our joined hands. My lips pressed together. If you don't reject me, I'll treasure this deeply. Besides, I do have feelings for you. He tightened his grip on my hand, his fingertips burning hot as he hurried to explain, you did nothing wrong. Poisoning me was to protect me, I know that in my heart. I'm not angry with you. It's just that you're so clever, with plans for everything. With you, my military power and strategies have no place to be used. Ultimately, I'm just angry at my own incompetence. I stared at him in surprise, a slight sting in my nose. How could you be incompetent? No one in this world has the right to call you incompetent. Xiaoxing pulled me close, embracing me. His voice was muffled. You say you're climbing above your station, but I don't see it. Had your family not suffered such calamity, how could you have ever set your sights on a mere soldier like me? I heard of you when I entered the capital, a paragon among the capital's noble ladies. Proficient in music, chess, calligraphy, painting, classical studies, and statecraft. You even debated scholars in the imperial court, your knowledge matching theirs. He released me and stared intently at my face. A lady of your caliber, poised and worldly wise, I feared you'd find me shallow, with nothing to offer. He thought so deeply, while I'd only ever seen the surface of him. His praise felt undeserved. He continued, "When you came to the north as a tutor, the children's parents all told me how wonderfully you taught. Both masters are thoroughly convinced of your abilities." He awkwardly helped me smooth my hair. "Don't belittle yourself." I nodded, my heart filled with nothing but gratitude. Much later, I noticed the fishing net hanging in the corner. "Did you have someone make that?" "I was afraid you'd find this place messy, so I had it arranged specially." He seemed slightly uneasy. No wonder the barracks were so clean, it was all his doing. Even those events in the city, they were all his schemes to lure me to him. With that out in the open, my spirits soared. Hand in hand with Xiaoxing, we strolled back to the city. Though the road was long, the walk felt effortless. Yet he kept turning back, asking if I was tired, offering to carry me. I actually let him carry me for a stretch. Many people on the street saw me and changed their tone, addressing me as madam. They even asked Xiaoxing when they could have our wedding candies. Xiaoxing turned to me, "When will we have the candies? The general wants them? No rush. I need to prepare properly." He paused, gazing into the distance. "I want the whole world to know, Yun Pingqing is married to me." Yun Pingqing was once the paragon of Beijing's noble ladies, a high-born young mistress revered by all. By marrying me, she becomes the general's wife, still peerlessly noble, still revered by all. I nodded. Agreed. Side story. At 15, I followed my father into battle. For 10 years, I galloped across the battlefield, earning glorious military achievements. The court hailed me as a loyal minister and valiant general, the people worshipped me like a deity. I drifted in self-satisfaction, truly believing myself a savior. But when my deputy general betrayed me, framing me for colluding with foreign powers, I finally understood, no one in this world is indispensable. In prison, the pain in my scapula paled in comparison to the agony of disappointment. It wasn't worth it. This court, this world, it wasn't worth my utmost effort. I fasted and denied myself all desires, forcing myself into stillness to comprehend the treacherous currents of the court and the true nature of human relationships. Then one day, Chancellor Yun Shinji fell from grace. The women of the Yun household were imprisoned in the cell next to mine. I knew his eldest daughter, Yun Pingqing, rumored to be a brilliant and cultured lady of noble birth. Facing such calamity, I expected her to panic, weep, and wallow in self-pity like other noble ladies. But when I saw her calmly kowtow to her fiancé, speaking with neither humility nor arrogance as she offered to take her 3 sisters as concubines, I suddenly understood. People act with purpose, seeking wealth, fame, or survival. Set your sights, and charge forward without fear of gain or loss. Pingqing said I saved her, that she owed me a debt of gratitude. But in truth, she saved me. Buddhism speaks of gradual enlightenment, Taoism of sudden awakening. In that moment, I felt it. Life is fleeting. Don't let others' dullness sway you. Do what you wish. Hold fast to what you believe. Means may be black or white, but outcomes are not. As for the slander after my death, what does it matter to me? How fortunate I was to know her, to marry her. Before our wedding, I proclaimed it to the world. The marriage contract was sent to the capital. I cared not whether the emperor was angered, but the result was his decree. Pingqing was granted the title of noble consort, and a phoenix crown and ceremonial robes were sent. My wife is Yun Pingqing. As long as I, Xiaoxing, live, she is not the daughter of a traitor, nor a sinner bearing guilt. She is a remarkable woman, exalted and revered by all. Yun Pingqing. The end.